Hello, I'm Lynn Onstot with Joplin Insider. I welcome you to this show. We're here to provide you some background information about different things going on at the city. Today my guest is Steve Stockam, manager of the Joplin Regional Airport. I welcome you, Steve. Thanks for coming out.
Well, thank you for having me.
I don't know if you've ever been on this show. I know you do some shows with Judy at, with the Newsmakers, but I'm really glad you could come out for this show. We're going to talk a little bit about the airport because there's a lot of good things going on over there. But first, tell viewers a little bit about your background and how you got to the city and how long you've been there.
Well, I'm actually a Missouri Southern alumni.
Oh, wonderful.
Graduated from Southern.
Me too.
Spent most of my life in construction, managing large construction projects. Moved back to the Joplin area and became affiliated with the city of Joplin 1989. Getting ready to celebrate my 30th anniversary with the city.
Man, congratulations.
Been at the airport since 1991. So, yeah, it's been an extremely interesting process. Learned a lot of things. I'm currently the chairman of the State Aviation Commission to assist MoDOT with aviation projects around the state. I'm actually the longest tenured airport manager, I think, in the state of Missouri right now.
That's what I thought. Well, I know you've had, you know, I came to the city about 16 years ago, and I had a chance to meet you and work with you, and there's been a lot of exciting things that have gone on, and we'll talk a little bit about the history and what has taken place. But first off, I know there's a great new announcement, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce what we're going to see here.
Yeah, I mean, we had an opportunity right before Christmas. We've been working with American Airlines for a number of years with our service, and one of the things that was really foremost goal that we had was to get Chicago service.
Yes.
And so we were able to secure that through American. We made the announcement right after the first of the year, and we're extremely excited. That service is going to begin here in June. And so it's been a very busy early part of the year, and it will continue to be very busy as we move and get closer to that start date. Okay,
well, before we get into too many of the details, I know there is a commercial that's running on some of our local stations and such. So, Alyssa, if you're in the control room, if you have that commercial, we'd love to see it, if you don't mind.
This is Steve Stockam, manager of the Joplin Regional Airport. We are excited to announce the expansion of our American Airlines service to Chicago beginning June 6th. Through Dallas or Chicago, you can connect to nearly anywhere in the world. Book your travel today at aa.com.
That is an impressive commercial. I've seen it several times on our stations, and it really does tell the story of that now you can really get anywhere from.
Yeah, I think when people look at our service, and we talk about Dallas and Chicago, and I mean that's where the two hubs we go, but really it's about connectivity. I mean, to be able to get to other places in the world. And when you talk about iconic hubs in the United States, Dallas and Chicago are, you know, probably 3 or 4 of the biggest hubs in the world. And so the ability for us to have direct connections really tells a huge story for us. And when you think about now, we have the capability of doing Joplin, Hawaii with one stop. Those are very impressive things for a community our size to be able to have.
Right. The air service in Joplin, it has grown from, you know, kind of a smaller market all the way to Dallas flights being full all the time. How often does Dallas, you know, how often do we fly to Dallas now?
Well, right now, our schedule just is changing a little bit. As we move into the spring, we will add, in April, we'll add a 3rd flight to Dallas. We've just got 2 a day now. Again, in April, we'll add the 3rd flight, and then, of course, in June, then we'll add the 2 to Chicago. So through the summer months, we'll go to 5 flights a day.
Wow.
I would suspect that they may pull back one of the Dallas flights in the fall. When we get around holiday season, business traveler does back up a little bit, and of course, we've got a lot of holiday travelers too that we try to accommodate. But again, the schedule works that way. They need to rotate aircraft through for maintenance and those kinds of things. So we work with them very well. They've done a great job serving the market, and we're very proud of that service.
Yeah, I've had a chance to work with, or meet some of the American officials, and they really are very friendly and willing to work with us, and they've recognized our market as providing service. Now, when you say the commercial flyer, the business flyer, and the the recreational, or they can travel. So what's the mix at Joplin?
Well, you know, when you look at the commercial traffic, we break it up and we try to isolate the markets. We know that in order to make it really successful, you need to have the business traveler. Those are those folks that are going every week or every other week and traveling for business. Also the ability for folks to get from other parts of the country and other parts of the world to Joplin. And our traffic is really kind of 80-20 from that standpoint. And we also know that of the 80% that's business that's out there, that probably 65% of those folks come from somewhere else in the country. And so when you think about that many people coming into your community from somewhere else in the world, it really is kind of unusual, again, for a small community like us to be a destination airport instead of an origination airport, because again, we have a number of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 businesses locally. We have a very strong manufacturing base. Our business leaders have done a great job of spreading the word, not only nationally but internationally, and so the ability for us to feed all of those markets is extremely important.
Well, you know, you mentioned the community and the business community supporting the airport, you know, the air service. I know with Chicago there has been some support from our community. Can you talk about why we had businesses step up a little bit and what that scenario was?
The agreement that we had with American Airlines to begin the Chicago service is called an MRG, or minimum revenue guarantee.
Okay.
So basically the airlines won't start a service unless they know, hey, we got to at least break even.
Yeah, it's got to be somewhat profitable.
And obviously for them to stay, it's got to be profitable, but we need to build a baseline. And so they being American Airlines, told us that we needed about $600,000 to make sure that they were successful in trying to get that. Now again, that's not money that's actually paid out every month. That's just a backstop if they don't sell as many tickets one month, they fall a little short of the revenue guarantee, then we've got to make up the difference in that revenue guarantee.
Up to $600,000.
Up to $600,000.
Okay.
Now, what basically we did is looked at the different sectors of the community that was going to be impacted mostly by this.
Sure.
Obviously, the city of Joplin had a part in it as part of the city, the airport and such, and so we divided it into thirds.
Okay.
We said, okay, the city's got a third of it, the business sector's got a third of it, and the travel industry and the CVB or hotel motel industry's got a third of it. Again, when we go back to the makeup of our travelers, we anticipate that of the new travelers that will be coming into Joplin, that there'll be about 15,000 room stays per year impacted by that new service, which again,
that's significant,
extrapolates to about $3 million of local impact to the community. And so we felt like that they needed to come to the table and be part of that. We met with the CVB board, talked about that, and they were supportive of using $200,000 of their CVB funds within the city's program as part of that backstop. Then the other sector out there was, again, our local businesses. And so we met with Toby Teeter and the folks at the Chamber and sit down with them, since they are the economic development arm of the city of Joplin, and said, okay, can we raise pledges to $200,000 to do that? And literally they did that in just less than 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know we have an ad, and I'm not sure if Felissa has that pulled up, but there's an ad that lists, I know you ran that in our local Joplin Globe, that listed some of those businesses, and at some point I'd like to put those on the screen. There's the ad, and I don't know if you scroll down.
Yeah, I think if you scroll down on that just a little bit, but yeah, there was about a little less than 40 industries and businesses, and there they are right there, that stepped forward and said, hey, we'll pledge, we know that this is important to our community, we know how valuable having that additional service is, and we'll pledge that through the Chamber. Again, those pledges are through the Chamber. And so again, I can't thank those people enough of stepping forward in a very short period of time and putting that money together for us, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, and because they do recognize it. They've used the airport, they know their customers are using it, and some of their contractors possibly, and things of that nature. I want to go back and say, when we talk about the CVB, for those people that may not know that, that's the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is our tourism arm of the city. And you know, they do a great job in trying to get people coming to Joplin, and when they get here, and showing them around and things of that nature. So
I have to be careful. I use acronyms all the time. Aviation industry is huge with that, and so not everybody understands what those are.
Well, CVB is one I throw around also, but when you start throwing airport ones, I'll slow you down because I won't know those. So you mentioned that the air service for Chicago starts in June. So can we get tickets now?
Yes, tickets actually went on sale a couple weeks after we signed the agreement in January, so they've been on sale for a while. We've had a couple of adjustments that we've made. We look as they started loading all of the city pairs and everything. There were some markets that the pairs didn't add up right as far as the dollars were concerned. We've gone through, our air service consultant has looked at those markets to make sure that we're competitive with the area airports around, and so there has been some adjustments, and we'll continue to make those adjustments as we move forward. But right now everything looks very good. This last week I meet every week with our air service folks locally, and they said bookings are already very, very strong for those first flights. And so and that's really kind of unusual because it's still a long ways out there in the world of booking airline flights. For us, it's not very far when we're trying to get everything ready to go.
And we'll talk about that in a minute, but I know even, you know, the leisure traveler, I mean, I've talked to a lot, you know, the people I'm talking to, they're so excited because they have relatives, you know, north, or they want to go to Chicago just for a quick visit or things like that. And that's what they're telling me, is we've always wanted that flight.
Oh, yeah.
And I know the business side of it always wanted the flight, so I expect it to be a...
Yeah, and I'll just give you a prime example. If you're a St. Louis Cardinal fan, we start on the 6th of June, and on the 7th of June, there's a Cubs-Cardinals series at Wrigley Field.
Oh, it's amazing that you would know that. You
one of those things that actually my wife and I had looked at was possibly flying up there and catching a game at Wrigley, and so, you know, spend the weekend in Chicago. But again, it's not necessarily just about Chicago, even though Chicago is a huge market for us. It's that connectivity that you provide through O'Hare to not only get you to the East Coast, but then the international markets out there are extremely valuable.
And
also,
there are a lot of businesses that are doing international business, is what I understand. You know, and talking to Toby and, you know, hearing more from the businesses, that's a great connection.
Yeah, when you talk about air service, literally you're talking about the mechanism that connects you to anywhere in the world. And so when you start thinking about these people that move around the country because of technology that don't necessarily have an office in one specific location, but they do it on the road and in different mechanisms, really the air service provides that open market for us and allows us to compete on those international markets and on an international level that we couldn't before.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the details. What kind of aircraft are they going to be flying?
They'll start off with jet aircraft. It'll still be jet aircraft. It'll be the ERJ 140s. It's basically a 44-passenger jet aircraft. Currently, Dallas market currently operates with a little bit larger aircraft. In fact, we just started service with the ERJ 175, which is a 76-passenger aircraft. That service actually started on Sunday for us. Wow. Those are some of the newest aircraft in American's fleet. They're cabin class aircraft, first class seating. I mean, beautiful, beautiful aircraft. Again, you've got to start somewhere. So we're gonna back up and we're starting with a little bit smaller aircraft.
Test the market, so to speak. Just see.
That's exactly
right. I can see, you know, like
there's a picture of the 175. Actually, that picture was taken just today.
That's awesome.
And a beautiful aircraft and really a nice airplane.
Well, that's great because, like you said, we started smaller even with Dallas, and we've been building on that. You know, they added the third flight, I think, last summer.
That's correct.
And now they're adding it again this summer, so they're starting to see, or they've known that we have a definite need for that. Do you see that maybe they'll flip-flop possibly. Do you have any idea? Like,
well, and that's interesting.
More popular, or?
We again, in part of our conversations with American, in trying to get them or entice them to start the Chicago service, after we provided them with a lot of very good data, they started looking at the market pairs and where our traffic was going. They've actually come back to us and said, we think that the Chicago market can be as deep or maybe deeper than the Dallas market. That being said, we know we're already serving the Dallas market with 3 flights a day with 70 passenger airplanes. If we can do that with the Chicago market also, then sky's the limit for us out there. Well,
5 flights a day out of our airport. I'm sure that's created some work for you and your crew.
Well, and it's different because we've actually had more flights a day, but with smaller aircraft.
Okay.
And so years ago, when we were flying 19 passenger airplanes, we had, at one time we had 16 flights a day.
Oh my gosh.
But at that time, we weren't moving that many people because the aircraft had a whole lot less seats. Now when you're talking about cabin class aircraft with first class seating, this is a whole different level of air service than what we were used to back in those days.
Yeah.
And so I've had people say, you've really become a real airport now. I mean, you've got jet service, you've got boarding bridges, you've got all of those things, and the amenities that we've been able to provide with our new terminal building. Our terminal will be 10 years old this coming August.
Has it been?
But I mean, having that kind of facility has really been able to enable us to entice and have people take us seriously.
Yeah. Well, with that said, for people that may not have even seen our terminal, they haven't had a need to fly out of Joplin, that it's open. They can come out and just look around. And can they buy tickets there? I know, AA.com, everything's online anymore, but are there tickets?
Yeah, I mean, you can actually buy tickets at the airline ticket counter. They don't encourage that,
right?
And because those folks are really designed to handle processing of the tickets.
Yeah, so people flying in and out.
And like I say, everything's done online anymore.
Well, but if you need help, call a travel agent.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. There are still travel agents in this area that we work with, a number of very good agencies, and they can not only handle your airline tickets, but they can put together rental cars and rooms and all of those, and have the full package. Yes.
Yeah, and you've worked with them. Now you have rental car facilities at the airport as well, right? At the
right. Avis and Hertz are our 2 branded rental car agencies. We've been very fortunate that they have stayed with us and stuck with us through some lean times and some very good times. Hertz has now been converted. Bob Ballard, local businessman who owned the Hertz dealership or the Hertz franchise for a number of years, passed away a couple of years ago. That was bought by a Hertz dealer out of Arkansas.
Okay.
And they are, I guess what I'm trying to say is both of Hertz and Avis currently have a lot of cars that they can draw from. So when we get a little low on cars, they can go to the outside markets, pull in some extra cars.
And it doesn't take them long.
And so there were times in the past where we'd actually run out of rental cars. And those days just don't happen anymore.
Well, they're probably going to have to stock up, I imagine, with the...
Well, we've expanded the parking lot. We've done a lot of different things with the amenities out there. So yeah, it's going to be a little different.
Has it changed the infrastructure of the airport, the things that you have to do to accommodate the size of aircraft and maybe the FAA regulations?
Well, yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for us, and the FAA stepped up and helped us this last year, was getting a bigger fire truck.
Okay.
One of the things that we're required to do is be at a certain index for safety when the aircraft comes in and lands and takes off. So that's been a huge thing for us, and now we've got this truck that helps us manpower-wise to be able to serve those markets. But that being said, there are some other logistical issues. We do have 2 boarding bridges, so we'll actually have Bridge 1 that will go to Dallas, Bridge 2 that will go to Chicago. That one bridge has been sitting there for a couple, 3 years, and it's not been really used very much. So we're trying to make sure that it's up to par and up to speed. You've got counter spaces and check-in spots and all of those things that Americans got to do. They've got to expand their ticket counters out front because they don't have enough room
jobs,
for,
I imagine.
again, more employees. TSA's got more employees because of screening. So I've had to expand the employee parking lot to be able to accommodate all the employees now. We expanded over the last couple of years the parking lot out front. We just did a lighting project on that to provide additional lighting, changed everything over to LEDs. So I mean, you know, all of these things are just things that we've got to make sure that we meet. Some of the things for the new Chicago service will have to be done prior to June 6th. Some of them more long-term issues will be developed and discussed in the next budget cycle for the city of Joplin. And so, you know, we're going to do whatever we got to do to meet the requirements. But that being said, it is expensive, and it is something we'll have to do over a period of time.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the parking. That's one marketing element that I know you and I are really proud of. What is the great thing about parking?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we've held our kind of badge of honor for us has been the fact that we have free parking. And we have looked at paid parking. It is a huge revenue source for a lot of airports, but it is also an issue that we can say with Springfield and Northwest Arkansas and some of the other airports around, hey, you can come here, you can park your car for a week, and you get in it and go home, and you don't have a $60 or $100 bill to get your car out of hock. And so I think that in the ease and the convenience of being able to get in and out of our parking, we're in a very short walking distance. All of our parking is a very short walking distance to the terminal. It's very easy to get in and out of. Our TSA lines are not long. It's very easy to get on the aircraft. I really can't say enough good things about our TSA folks. They're very accommodating for people when they have problems. Maybe people have mobility problems or any issues. We're here to solve those things and make your travel as easy and comfortable as possible.
In our family, our luggage is too heavy. That's the problem we run into.
Now, and the airlines do charge extra for that, but that's part of the deal.
Because it's weighing on the.
That's exactly right.
Equates to how heavy is the plane, how much fuel, and yada yada yada. So, well, we mentioned Dallas a little bit. How long have we been flying to Dallas?
About 6 years.
Okay.
We started Dallas a number of years ago. We started off with an ATR-72, which was a turboprop airplane, and then we converted to after about a year and a half, we converted to the jet aircraft, and then we've slowly been getting bigger and bigger jets ever since. The Dallas market, again, we went back and we looked at, we basically said, look, if we're going to continue to be a player in the commercial service market, we've got to go out and figure out how we're going to get a legacy carrier in here. And so with that being said, we surveyed the market. The market said, we want Dallas, we want American. We went after it really hard, got it, and that's been the turnaround that's really kicked everything in from that point forward.
That's awesome. Now, there are some people here that drive places and maybe they haven't traveled as far, and they question, why does Joplin even need an airport if there's one in Springfield and Tulsa and such? So can you tell our viewers a little bit about the economic impact that we see?
Well, I think that a lot of times people get the idea about an airport that whether it's the commercial service side or the general aviation side, it's something that rich people do, and it's a private club or something like that, and that can't be further from the truth. I mean, obviously there are opportunities for corporate industries and to have their own private aircraft and those kinds of things, but time is money for those folks, and the ability for them, that's why Chicago's so important. We had pretty good connections through Dallas, but in order to go east through Dallas, it took another 8 hours on an airplane somewhere. Well, a businessman or a business person trying to get to LaGuardia doesn't have that extra day to spend. They need to get there, they need to go to their meetings, and then they need to get home. And so the impact for our community, especially on the industry side, is huge for them to be able to compete. You've got the Leggett and Platts of the world that compete internationally, FAG Bearing, and all of these companies. The other thing is, people, again, I don't think recognize, the airport has a huge economic impact on the community. In fact, in excess of $21 million annually. And that's through commercial service, through private industry, through, we employ a little over 100 employees directly at the airport, but almost 275 employees indirectly at the airport. And so when you start thinking about all of those impacts, again, back to the hotel motel, those extra night stays in our community have a huge impact on how many rooms we have available in the community. And so those are all things that are, I think, that sometimes go under the radar and is not so necessarily recognized on a ready basis. But adding that much commercial service and those connectivities to the economic development and the leisure market, I mean, is huge.
Yeah, well, the general aviation, what does that include? I don't know if everyone understands what general aviation is.
Well, general aviation is when you talk about privately owned aircraft. Okay. And so the other side of the field, which is down where the old terminal was at, is basically where all of our hangars are at. Excuse me. Industries and businesses that own their private aircraft, and then individuals that own private aircraft. And I would say we have 123 based aircraft at the airport. That's a lot of people don't know.
That's a lot.
And now that doesn't necessarily mean that all of those airplanes are there at the same time. Some of those airplanes are obviously moving all over the country. But that being said, when you think about that many airplanes and the requirements for maintenance and fuel and all the different things, excuse me, that's a big deal. Part of that also is the fact that it grows a certain part of the market. Business-wise, when you talk about avionics and again, mechanics and doing all those maintenance, that's where a lot of those people...
Kind of those trades that people don't realize what it takes. Right. You know, behind the scenes of the airport, when you see all that going on, those people have special skills
And like CD Aviation, which is one of the industries that is located, they have locations in Canada and other parts of the world. They send aircraft parts literally everywhere in the world. And that's out of Joplin, Missouri. And so when you think about the impact that those can have locally and internationally, it's just amazing, the interconnectivity.
Oh, it's just been amazing to hear this, you know, just the short program that we have. I've learned a lot, and I hope our viewers have also. As we get close to wrapping up, is there anything else that you'd like to cover before we close the show?
Well, I just ask everybody to, if you're making plans for this summer or you're looking at it, I know some people in the past have said, it's too expensive or those kinds of things. Please give Joplin a chance, because we're very, very competitive on the fares, and literally by June 6th we can get anywhere in the world from Joplin, Missouri. And
that's incredible. So it's aa.com or call a travel agent and they can price compare and look and shop around.
You bet.
So, okay, well, thank you, Steve, so much. We're going to wrap up today's show. I want to thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.